everyone. My name is Jenna, but you guys can call me Jen. Welcome back to my channel and welcome if you're new. Hi, hello. Welcome to a challenge video wherein I am going to try and read a book every day for 7 days. I've been seeing a couple people do this where they read a book every day for like 30 days or 7 days or however many, and I would like to try that, specifically going for books that are on my physical TBR, because as we know, I could use anything to help me shrink that bad boy down because we are sitting at currently 170 books on my physical TBR. So, and this is before 2 more pre-orders come in on Tuesday. So we're going to try and shrink this bad boy by 7-ish. And I'm excited about it. So I went and I had a little gander through my shelves, all sorts on my mantle over there, in my yellow cabinet, and on my main shelves there. And we have a bean who says hello. Hi, baby. Oh my goodness. Look at you. And I have pulled a bunch down that I'm like, I could reasonably read this in one day. Granted, I have the ability to read things in one day very easily. That is down to audiobooks and my low-key terrifying speed that I read a lot of audiobooks at, which is about 3 times speed. So this shouldn't be hard, is what I'm saying. But I have a whole possibility stack, in fact, 2 possibility stacks here, and we're just gonna quickly go through them. So let me get oriented and we'll quickly go through them. Okay, in our first stack, I have Courting Samira by Amal Awad, which is a romance. You'll notice there's a fair few romances in here because I feel like I could get through a romance very, 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 very fast. So I feel like this could be also a good opportunity for me to read a couple romances and maybe a couple like mysteries, mix up the genres a little bit, keep it fresh and fun. I don't know, but Courting Samira. I have Elizabeth Bear's All the Wind-Wracked Stars. That word, every time I try to say it, I mess it up. Cutie little pocketbook fantasy. People Watching by Hannah Bonham Young. There's a lot of Hannah Bonham Youngs in here. To Shape a Dragon's Breath by Monocle Black Goose, because this would be a reread to thus read the sequel. But both of these are like large, but they are also YA. So I'm like, rock and a hard place. I could read this in one day if I really wanted to. So that's on here. A Shadow Crown by Melissa Blair. This is part of the Halfling Saga that I've meant to read so many times. This is the second book. So there's this one. The Gift of Guthix by Erin M. Evans, one of my favorite authors of all time. That is why it's a RuneScape book in my hand. I know nothing about RuneScape. I just love Erin M. Evans. Emily Henry's Funny Story. The only other Emily Henry that I have not read is her newest one, I think. I could be wrong. And then I have 3 Jordan Fuecos. I have The Maid and the Crocodile, I have Redemptor, and I have Raybearer. So the original plan with this was to reread Raybearer, to then read Redemptor, to then read The Maid and the Crocodile. That would be fun. If any of these get picked, I will just start with Raybearer. But they're all on this list because they're all fun, and I think I could read them all. Not all in a day, but like each in a day. Next stack, we have the next book in Anne McCaffrey's Dragon Song trilogy. This is the second one. I read Dragon Song a while ago, but these are very cutie, very tiny. These almost feel like middle grade, at least the first one did. So could be very, very fast to read. And then we have Next to You by Hannah Bonham Young, Next of Kin by Hannah Bonham Young. So those are my 3 Hannah Bonham Youngs that I got going on here. We have Finlay Donovan, Jumps the Gun, which is a continuation of this cutie little series. I have not read in many years, but easy peasy. We have Nathaniel Lescomb's The Planets We Become, very teeny tiny little sci-fi. We have Bride by Ali Hazelwood. I've never read an Ali Hazelwood in my life. Could this be the video? Who knows? We have Bakers and Magic, A Fellowship of Bakers and Magic by Jay Penner, which I should read because I know Girly Pop has so many books out, and she's a mutual of mine on TikTok. We have both Long Shadow and 10,000 Stitches by Olivia Atwater. Both of these are under 300 pages, and I feel like I could easily polish them off. More cozy-ish fantasy. And another Jay Penner, we have Death Meets Cute, which is her Trad Pub debut, I think. Original. Wait, no, is it not? Because her Adena Shire books were picked up traditionally. But like, Trad published, very cutie. That one. Another cozy. We have India Holton's The Antiquarian's Object of Desire. I know I can read this in one day because I have read an India Holton in one day before very easily. So there's this one. That would also finish out a trilogy. We have Brigands and Bread Knives by Travis Baldry, another one of his cozy books. We have The Sins on Their Bones by Laura R. Samatin. This is a slightly bigger book, but again, I have the abilities to read a lot of books in one day. I just decided to pick slightly shorter ones for this so that I wouldn't get overwhelmed, because I have the ability to read a lot of pages in a day. But next, Among the Burning Flowers by Samantha Shannon. This was on my recently read as many books as I can of the shortest on my TBR vlog that I did a week ago, whatever. So there's that one. And then I also have, finally, Thanks for Watching by Kate Kavanaugh. We also have a couple books. Oh, what are they called? Who are they by? I could read anything in the series by T.L. Huchu as well. That's what we got. I think I'm going to attempt to source some audiobooks for some of these. Maybe, perhaps. I have audiobooks for some of them already. I'm going to count, I think, and do a random number generator. I think that's what I'm going to do, because I have no particular draw to any book over another book. So we're just going to get into it. I think it's going to be fun and exciting. And we're going to try read 7 books in 7 days, starting today. We got 25 books. So we're going to run that through a random number generator. We're going to pick our first book. I'm going to stack them so that I have an order, because right now they're just laid out all over my floor. We're going to go through this. 1 a day for 7 days. Doable? I'm excited to actually cull down my TBR. So amazing. Actually, I lied. We have 27 that I might have on this list, because I kind of want to add in a Bethany Jacobs from her sci-fi series. So 27 possibilities. I'm going to hit that random number generator, and we're going to get to it. Let's do it. All right, we've got the T.L. Huchu on dock. Incredible. How fun. Our Lady of Mysterious Ailments is the continuation of the Library of the Dead series. There are 5 books in the series. This is the second one. I have read the first one twice. The first one twice because I was reading it to thus continue with the series, and I have not read the first one in a while, but I do remember enough about it, I think. So we should be fine. We should be fine. This is good. This is great. What a good start. This is a very voicey Edinburgh alternate universe, slightly alternate universe Edinburgh, where our main character Ropa can talk to ghosts and stuff. And in the first book, young children are being drained of their youth by this mysterious being, and this is being sold as a drug or something. Yeah, there's some crazy shit going on. So we're gonna start this one. I'm wondering if this is a new job. Interesting. Yeah, so it's a new job. So she gets Ropa, our main character, gets hired by people to deal with ghosts in their houses and businesses and buildings and whatever. So this is one particularly where she gets to go investigate the Edinburgh Ordinary School for Boys, one of the only 4 registered schools for magic in the whole of Scotland, the oldest and the only one that remains closed to female students. When I get into it, I'll let you know how I feel. This should be fun. Hello, friends. It is much later, the same day. It is officially, I don't even know if I told you guys, but it is officially June 27th today. And I just finished the first book of this video. I finished Our Lady of Mysterious Ailments, and I gotta say, I was bored the entire way through. And I got to the end and I was reading a couple parts and I was like, I don't even know who these characters are. I just wasn't tracking the book at all, which is so unfortunate because the first book is so fun in a way of also incredibly creepy, and I was waiting for the creep factor to kick back in again, but it never really did, which is so unfortunate. So I am officially, 1, done that book, 2, DNFing that series. I am not going to continue with it, because why would I when I just didn't enjoy the sequel, right? The first book is great, and I'll keep that on my shelves, but I'm getting rid of the second one. So there's that. But yes, happy I did that. Happy I got 1 book down. Sad it was such a failure, but hey, it's still light out. I still have some of the day left. Not bad job. I don't know which one it's gonna be for tomorrow. I'm tempted to roll the random number generator for the next one. Maybe I'll leave it for tomorrow to do something a little fun and spicy tomorrow. Maybe. I don't really have anything else to really say about that book because it is a sequel. I don't know. It is incredibly voicey. Like the way that it's written feels like you are talking to somebody from Edinburgh. Every other sentence is like saying something. I'm like, I don't get it, but I get the context. So sure. But it was very fun in the first book. And it was fine in the second book as well. It just took me a second to like settle into the writing style. But yeah, it's not the writing style that turned me off of the book. I just couldn't care less about anything that was happening in the book. It didn't have any of the pull or the creep factor that I was wanting from the first book again. So, alas. But yes. All right, one book down, 6 more to go. Hello, friends! Oh my goodness gracious, happy day 3. I am here not freshly, I finished it a couple hours ago. Done book 3 of this here challenge, and I have 2 books I need to talk to you about because I finished on day 2 another book. So, 3 for 3, my friends. We are not down. We are on par. We are exactly where we need to be, and I'm happy about it. So far, this is the only one that I've actually liked. So on day 2, I ended up getting the Antiquarian's Object of Desire on the random number generator, and fuck was this so much fun. And I was so happy to get it because not only is this such a fun, lighthearted, wonderful type of read, anytime I pick up an India Holton, I know I'm going to absolutely love it, but it finishes this trilogy for me. So another series done off my list. That's 3 so far this year and 2 this month alone. I'm very excited about it. Yes, India Holton, The Antiquarian's Object of Desire. This was so fun. I waxed a little bit poetic about it in my weekend vlog that went up last week, but I just I had so much fun with this. So I absolutely love India Holton's work, and I was so excited to pick this up. I say that, and then I've also talked about the fact that I sometimes find her books very similar, and they're no, you can't differentiate them in my head. Her first trilogy, I've yet to actually finish because I haven't read the third book, but the first 2 books, I was like, both of these couples feel the exact same to me. The main character women feel the same personality, same vibe, and then the men are just rakes and charming, charismatic, and the setup for the relationship just feels exactly the same. And I was like, there's nothing to differentiate these books for me, whatever. And then I read the first book of the Love's Academic series, which is the Ornithologists, something, long titles. And that one felt exactly the same as the other ones to me. But then book 2 took it and actually gave us a different relationship dynamic, which was so needed, and different vibes of characters. I do think India Holton's women characters all feel quite similar to me. They just kind of all have a very similar vibe to them. Some of them are a little bit more silly, some of them are a little bit more subdued, but all in the same personality train to me. I honestly could not tell them apart still. But at least in book 2 of the Love's Academic, and then book 3, which is this one, we have different relationship setups and relationship tropes. It's not all it's these rivals that are set up, or these people who hate each other are set up to be together for this moment. They have to do something together. They're running against time or whatever. They are forced together in a situation. They don't like each other, but they are so attracted to one another. Oh my God. And then fall in love in a week, right? They all felt the same to me. Book 2 is a failed marriage second chance type situation, which I don't love a second chance romance. And I guess it doesn't even really count as a second chance romance, because the first time they got married, it was a marriage of convenience, but with a crush, feelings behind it for at least one of the characters. And then it's a second chance later on when they actually have to get to know one another better and all this kind of stuff, and then they fall for each other again. Helps that they're already married. In this one, we have a friends to lovers romance, and do not shy away from a friends to lovers romance. This was perfect. Okay. Like even my friend Julie from Julie Reads on Instagram, who does not like Friends to Lovers, ate this up and loved it. So take her word over mine as someone who loves the Friends to Lovers trope. This was just so fucking perfect, and it was the exact way to do Friends to Lovers. I love it so much. Like there's just so much history in a Friends to Lovers situation. I loved it. I loved it. I think the only thing I didn't quite love about this book is kind of something that I have an issue with across India Holton's books, which has to do with her world building and her magic systems. In the Love's Academic world, I don't understand the magic. Because in the first book, we have magic birds. And then in the second book, we have like in the introduction of Feylines and magic artifacts and things like that. And then this one, it's more magic artifacts and Feylines and stuff like that. But I don't quite understand them. I don't understand their limits. I don't think it was well constructed or like fully constructed. Like it was well constructed, but I don't think it was fully well realized in the text because I still don't really know what the magic is in here. All I know is that it was kind of kooky and wacky and acted as a like almost a plot device in some instances, which again, not my favorite. And I do wish that the actual like cataloging in here, like what they are doing in here, basically, our two main characters, Amelia and Caleb, are fake hate each other, but they're actually like lifelong best friends. And they are two like rival quote unquote professors that like their entire faculty thinks they hate each other, and they have to keep up this charade because their like closeness almost lost Amelia her position the previous year or whatever, or 5 months before, or whatever. So they're on thin ice and they're like pretending that they hate each other and they have the best banter in the world, but they end up getting sent by their boss to this manor to basically hang out with this rich man and his wife and go through his entire antiques collection and find the magic ones to thus bring back to the museum, like the mostly like very powerful ones to the back to the museum. We don't really get a whole lot of that specifically. Like anytime we kind of come to a scene where we are going to be doing the antique vibe around the house, it's painted over with this feeling of like, oh, the characters are really bored. They are just like yearning after each other and they're like exhausted because they're not getting a good night's sleep because of the ghosts in the house, like all this kind of stuff. And I was just like, I want more of that, like organizing. I want more of the cataloging. I want more of that like mundanity of like their job. Like I want to see them actually doing their job, you know, in a better way than it was painted in here, because I don't think it was very concretely realized in the text on how they were going to do things. Because really for me, I just picture them with like an EVP machine, one of those things that you can like hold up to find like wires in your walls or like go ghost hunting with, right? Like it once it like just like lights up when they have energy. Like I've just kept picturing them walking around with this and just like holding it up to various stuff and then having different things have different magic, but then they can also see magic when it's happening because then it's like a little blue haze of magic. And I'm like, I don't understand this music. I don't get it. I don't like the magic system in here doesn't quite make sense to me. And I guess that's fine. But I love the trope of like the going and collecting things like from The Keeper of Magical Things by Julie Leong. I loved that trope in there. And I think it was extremely well done going through the categorization of things and like finding really interesting antiques and stuff like that, and getting the story in the background. Like, yeah, we kind of got that in here, but I don't think it was like purposefully done in a way that benefited the narrative a little bit. Like it didn't make it more interesting to me. It kind of made those parts a little boring to me. And I'm like, no, that should be cool to go through magical artifacts in some guy's house. Like, I don't know. It just like it felt like it was kind of pushed to the side a little bit, which I get it. It's not the point of the book, but like I wish it was a little bit more better done in this text, I think. Yeah, I just didn't feel like concretely realized in the text. Along with the magic system, it doesn't feel quite right in the text. And I think that's my issue with India Holton's books, is that something just doesn't feel quite right in the actual execution of the world building and stuff like that. But what I will say is the actual prose and her approach to coming after this gothic dark academia genre that she does in here. Because if you've read an India Holton, you know her prose is fucking hilarious and is perfect for a cozy romp in the cozy fantasy genre, right? And the cozy romance genre too. So when I heard she was doing a dark academia, quote unquote, I was like, how is she going to do that? I'm so interested to see how she approaches that. And this, honestly, to me is more gothic than dark academia. I don't think it really hits the dark academia very specific, because to me, dark academia is something that is very, what it's supposed to do as a genre is like shine a light on the institution of academia and like how it's like corrupt or whatever. Like, you know, it's like specifically academia. And this was very much not academia. Yeah, they're professors, but they aren't in the school during this book. They're in some guy's manor, right? So I'm like, okay, so this is Gothic. Like they're playing with the tropes and the conventions of this Gothic genre with like a very tongue-in-cheek type of way. So it reminded me of like Northanger Abbey and the way that Jane Austen handles the Gothic genre in her like almost satirical tongue-in-cheek kind of way. The main couple in here, who I absolutely love, Caleb owns my entire soul. He's a very Byronic like hero type situation, and he waxes poetic all the time. And Amelia is a very like stodgant, doesn't read novels type of like very to the guns scholar. They remind me so strongly of Emily and Wendell from Heather Fawcett's Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies. I love this relationship dynamic so much. It was so fantastic. So, but yes, I really, really, really loved this, and I had such a great time reading it yesterday. I highly recommend an India Holton if you want a really, really fun time. And then today, I picked up this book, All the Windwrack Stars by Elizabeth Bear. This is a Norse mythology reimagined Ragnarok turned sci-fi following a fallen Valkyrie figure and her Valraven and the Grey Wolf whose betrayal sparked the final battle. And because they still live, Valdegard is a very long time dying. So they are, at the beginning of this book, we see Ragnarok happen and we see our two characters come together. Our Casimir, who is the Valraven, who is this funky man, the steed, the two-headed deer steed with wings, who's called a stallion and a horse throughout this entire thing. And I'm just like, that is not a horse, but okay. I know you don't have another word for this being, but sure, the Valraven. We follow Casimir and also Mura, or Muira, Muire. Her name is very hard to say, but she is a over 2,200-year-old immortal being who is forced to just keep going because she's immortal. At this point, we start at Ragnarok when she loses all her family, all her compatriots, everybody, and then we are now 2,200 years in the future, in a very sci-fi world where we are basically witnessing the last dregs of humanity as the end of the world is coming again. And it also comes with this Grey Wolf figure who is like a kind of a vampiric, werewolfy, wolven type figure that like sucks out the souls of people to like feed and that kind of stuff. And it's very much like this whole book is very poetic. It's filled with this like ancient grief and this want to go back and like save everybody and then save everybody now and then also just not be here anymore. But it's like, I was reading one of the reviews on Goodreads and they hit it on the head. It's like, it's such a beautiful poetic book, but you just don't connect with any of the characters because of the way that it's written. And I think it's this specific style of like epic fantasy sci-fi that I have come across a number of times. It's the slightly older fantasy sci-fis that just don't allow you in. Like a couple of Martha Wells fantasies are like this, and it's why I just don't think Martha Wells is an author for me. I've read Murderbot, and I've read like 5 or 6 of the books. I just don't think I'm going to continue with them because I just don't like them very much. Like I like them, but they just don't hit for me the way that they do for everyone else. But I've tried a couple of her fantasies and I've DNF'd 2 of them at this point because they just hit this. They're just so like old style fantasy that just you don't connect with the characters. You're just kind of witnessing it. And I know that was kind of the style for this old kind of epic. I say this is old. This was written in 2008 or published in 2008, so it's not that old. Like it's gonna be 18 years, I guess, which I guess is kind of old, but like, you know what I mean? So it just is a style of writing that I don't jive with. Like I love an old man fantasy like a John Gwynne or a James Islington where you're like really in it with the characters and you're going on these super epic quests and it's multi POV and all this kind of stuff. But something about this just like it feels like it is so distant to the actual characters. So you're just like witnessing it instead of going through it with the characters. I think that's the best way I can describe it. So that's why this didn't quite work for me. But I thought it was interesting mixing like Norse mythology with such a lush, fully realized sci-fi. I won't fault her on her world building because it was kind of crazy. It was crazy. But yeah, so that's that. 3 books down. I don't know what I'm going to read next. but I'm excited to find out. I did move my giant stack to my mantle, and now it looms over me. So we shall see what I end up picking up next. But that is the update, my friends. My throat hurts from talking so much because I had to refilm this entire clip, and it was 18 minutes before. Now it's 15 because my mic wasn't working previously, and all you could hear was my air conditioner. So I really hope it worked this time. But yes, I will see you tomorrow for day 4. Hello friends, I'm popping in with a quick little teeny little baby little update, and that is I finished this book last night and I'm gonna go get the second one right now and I'm gonna read it today. So I'm kind of breaking my random number generator situation, but at least I'm gonna still try and read a book today, which is still 7 books in 7 days. So it works. Just not doing a random number generator for this one. I am picking it because I want to read the sequel. I want to go get it. So I ordered it last night, put it on hold. I'm gonna go get it. Oh my gosh, hello friends. Guess what? I finished this challenge. I fucking aced this challenge. And also, I read an extra book in this challenge. Didn't anticipate that happening. Anyways, hi, hello. It's officially July 6th today, and I have wrapped up my 7 books in 7 days challenge. And I just yapped about this in my weekend vlog update. This whole thing I wanted to do to like help shrink my TBR a little bit, because you guys know my TBR is a little out of control still. And I ended up, I think I started with 170 books on the TBR. I think we're only down to 167 at this point because of a number of different things. I did read 7 books off my TBR, my physical TBR that I own. First, I had 2 pre-orders come in this week. So that would have made my read down by 5 books. And then I also ended up picking up a book from the bookstore that was not originally part of that 170 list on Storygraph. So that would be 4 books. And then the last book that I read, I realized I didn't even have it marked as owned on that owned books list. So it was not part of that 170 books, which is Next of Kin by Hannah Bonham Young. So I only ended up reading 3 books off of my physical TBR. What the fuck? So I'm a little annoyed by that, but that's okay because I still read the books. I still am shrinking it down. I feel good, even though I didn't super love all the books that I read this week. I feel good about this challenge. I think it was very successful, and I read a fuck ton of pages and a fuck ton of books. And I did say that I ended up reading 8 books. I ended up reading 2 books on the final day of this challenge because I read Next of Kin for day 7. And I was also reading at the time on my Kobo Fabulous Bodies by Chuck Tingle. This isn't technically a physical TBR book, right? This is an arc. It came out, I guess, this week for you guys, Tuesday, July 7th. I read this as well. So, surprise 8th book that happened in this challenge. There's that. Anyways, last I talked to you, I believe I was talking about All the Windwrack Stars was the last book that I read. So that was day 3. Day 4, I ended up reading this cozy little book, A Fellowship of Bakers and Magic by Jay Penner. This is the first book in her Adenishire series that has been picked up traditionally. This was very cozy, very cutie. Didn't wow me, but I enjoyed it. I had a good time reading about this baking competition, and that's really, like, I have very little thoughts about this. I think only one of the thoughts is it is like one of the tropes in here is like fated mates, which I do not like, but I think it was done well enough in here because our guy, like, still allowed, because he's the elf with, like, that's part of the elven culture in here, to have like a fated mate, and he's been hunting for his for so long. and then he finds our main character, Arletta, and Arletta is his fated mate, but he doesn't like immediately say it to her. He just like slowly keeps being around her and like wanting to get to know her and all this kind of stuff, and then he leaves it up to her by basically at the end like, I'm leaving this up to you if you choose to be my mate or not. Like, yes, you are my fated mate, but like you still have agency in this. So I thought that was kind of nice. But what I will say is that anytime there was a moment that Arletta was like standing up for herself or should have been standing up for herself, and it's like a kind of a turning point moment, especially near the end with our guy's mother, who has to do with the baking competition, because essentially she is a human, a non-magical human who's gotten herself into this baking competition because her neighbors got her in it, basically, because she is a baker. She's an incredible baker, but she has no magic. And it's like kind of this unspoken rule of this baking competition that only magical beings and magic users can be in this competition. So somehow she gets in there with no magic and she makes it basically to the end, right? And people are baffled by this and also kind of love it because it's kind of like an elitist type of baking competition where elves usually are the ones who dominate this, and the elven population, a lot of the elven population who is in control of the baking competition, is very like, we should keep this traditional and as we always have been, and everybody else in the world is like, fuck you guys, we need to change this and open this up more because it's going to be more inclusive, and people are going to like it, people are going to watch it more, it's going to become more of a thing again. Like, it's kind of falling a little bit out of favor. And so it's cool that a human like gets to the end, and I really enjoyed the baking aspects of this. That was delicious and delightful to read. I love a good baking moment. But anytime Homie and Arletta are like together, it's a moment of like where Arletta should be should be doing something for herself or speaking up for herself. He kind of steps on her toes a little bit and like gets in the way and does it for her. And I was like, homie, you should like kind of step back a little bit and let Arletta do this. Like, she should be the one standing up for herself. I love that you're standing up for her, but like also this is her moment. Fuck off. You know what I mean? Like, there's a couple instances of that I was a little bit like, homie needs to back off a little. So I didn't love that. And then I don't know. I don't love the romance in here. That's really the only thing. I really liked the community aspect of it. I loved the extra characters that we're getting in here that were part of the baking competition, that become really good friends with Arletta and then end up moving to Odenishire at the end of this, because it sets up for all of the subsequent sequels in this world. I have book 2 and 3 as well, which I'm excited to read because I really enjoyed Dolly as a character. I think she's going to be so fun to read from. So anyways, yeah, very fun. I will be continuing with this cutie little cozy fantasy series because I love me some cozy fantasy, and it's high time that I actually fucking read a Jane Penner because she's mutuals with me on TikTok and I really enjoy her content. So I'm glad I finally read this. So there's that. And then day 5, I ended up rolling for Laura R. Samatin's The Sins on Their Bones, which thus led me to read on day 6 The Lure of Their Graves, which is the second one in this duology, thus wrapping up another duology. So I finished 2 series in this 7-day stretch, which is awesome because I wrapped up the India Holton trilogy and now this duology as well, started and finished. But that makes me happy. That makes me happy when I'm reading series down, you know what I mean? And I'm glad that I did choose to do this because these books have been on my radar and my mental TBR for a long time. And I picked up The Sins on Their Bones pretty recently from the bookstore. And I was just like, okay, like I know my mutuals on TikTok really like these. I know especially Alyssa really likes these and like hypes them up a lot. And I was like, okay, it's dark, it's queer, I gotta read them. I gotta find out what people are saying. These books are really well done. I think they are an exceptional exploration of grief and trauma and queer stories as a whole. These were really, really, really good. They are also really fucking slow. If I wasn't reading them in one sitting, which is usual for me in my reading, and also for this challenge, reading them basically in one sitting in one day, I probably would have had a little bit of trouble actually finishing them, which is why I also wanted to pick up book 2 for this series, or for this challenge, because then I could get through it as well. Not to say that these weren't excellent. I just think, like, if I can notice that the pacing is weird when I'm sitting down to read it all in one sitting, all in one go, the pacing, maybe it wasn't weird, it was just slow, and like purposefully so, I guess. Like, it lingered, it sat in the trauma, in the character moments, and all this kind of stuff. Like, this is not a fast-paced, dark series. This is just like luxuriating in the slowness, and I think that is a perk of these books. Even though I said like I probably would have had trouble finishing them, if I wasn't in the mood to read these, I would have a hard time getting through them, I think. And I think people will have a hard time getting through them if you're not used to slower fantasy or aren't expecting it to be super slow. And hey, maybe it was just me realizing that these are kind of slow. I don't know, but like we really lingered in a lot of the trauma of our characters in here. So essentially, especially in book one, we are following three separate POVs. We are following Dimitri, who is a simultaneously an ex-Tsar, an ex-husband, and also someone who's incredibly broken from the war. He is like so at the end of his tether at the beginning of this book. He really is doing nothing. He's trapped in his depression and his anxiety and his PTSD, and he is desperately, desperately abused by his ex-husband, who is the Tsar on the throne, basically. And so we're following Dimitri, and then we're following his friend Vasily, who is another POV, and he is also like deeply traumatized and all this kind of stuff, but he is not in the same position as Dimitri. So Dimitri at the beginning of Sins on Their Bones is holed up in a basically like a safe house with his friends. He calls them his court because it's his like closest members of his court, essentially, from his time as Tsar, after this incredibly terrible like civil war coup situation where his husband basically fucking yoinked the throne from him. Like it was this weird moment, big drama, lots of death, lots of sadness, lots of just broken cities and villages and people all around. Dimitri is very, very, very broken, and his friends are basically just taking care of him at this point. And they're like, okay, like it's been a while, like we kind of need to start thinking about what we're going to do next and all this kind of stuff. And it just takes so long at the beginning to get to the point where they are now doing something and doing something for this moment, you know, to get back at Dimitri's estranged ex-husband, kind of a thing. And then the third POV we are following is that husband. His name is Alexei, and we are following him as he is in power and as he is experimenting further with what is called the holy sciences. And so we find out that Alexei basically came back from the dead as an experiment to thus being more connected to the holy sciences and to God and all this kind of stuff. And he basically thinks of himself as a god in this moment because he genuinely believes that he has a connection to God who speaks directly to him through his mind and is like guiding him through these more and more terrible experiments and all this kind of stuff. So basically, throughout this whole thing, we're following Dimitri and Vasily and Alexei as Dimitri and Vasily and all their friends are like slowly coming back and deciding how they are going to take back the throne from Alexei. And they are doing this very gentle, quiet coup, essentially. So they're finding out more about Alexei. Vasily goes to the court and like basically infiltrates into the court again because no one really knows who he is because he was the previous spy master for Dimitri, so no one knows his face, no one really knows who he is. And Vasily infiltrates the castle after soul binding essentially with Dimitri so that they have a way of talking to each other in their minds and in their dreams. So they do this piece of magic where they summon an angel that helps them bind each other to each other. And so they start having these like really, really intimate conversations and stuff like that. And at this point, like Vasily and Dimitri are fucking all the time. They are like, it is kind of passed off as this like comfort and this space of like, okay, like Vasily knows that Dimitri needs things in a specific way because he is so abused by his previous husband and all this kind of stuff. And so they are regularly fucking. Vasily so in love with Dimitri. Dimitri doesn't realize that he's in love with Vasily as well, but like they are. You know, it's their queer love story, essentially. It's a romantasy in that sense. So we are also getting them, like, also seeing them become closer in that way. And these books are so rife and just beautiful with so many different queer identities because Demi ends up kind of like, you kind of get the feeling that he is on the demisexual spectrum and he is bisexual as well because he is attracted to both men and women. Vasily as well, but like mostly gay. And then we have like sapphic characters and we also have fully aro ace characters as well, and we have a non-binary character in here, Mishka. I love Mishka. They are so fun. They are the doctor, they are the healer essentially. But we find out like one of my favorite things about this book and about the series is the way that demisexuality is treated in here, because there's a moment in The Lure of Their Graves, which like the whole point of The Lure of Their Graves is that now that Dimitri's back on the throne essentially after the events of the first book. One of the biggest things is that he has to get married for like a political advantage. So he cannot marry the love of his life, Vasily, right? It's this whole thing. And let me tell you, I was annoyed for some of this, for a lot of it, because they just kept harping on the fact that they could never be together. And it was just this soul crushing, awful sadness through the whole thing from both of them. They were yearning after each other so heavily. And the whole time I was just like, fucking marry someone just politically. Like, calm the fuck down. And they did address this in one of the suitors that comes to court, essentially, because they offer a life of like, you can fuck whoever you want, I can fuck whoever I want, this is a political marriage, right? And I was like, that's the problem solved. Calm the fuck down. But there's so much more to it in this. That was the whole thing in here because of that situation going on and how Dimitri reacts to that and that knowledge and the way that he goes into full panic mode and all this kind of stuff. Granted, he has a lot of trauma around arranged marriages because his previous husband was an abusive motherfucker and all this kind of stuff. He's still anyways, there's all this trauma around it, and the way that Dimitri acts or reacts to that forced marriage, like his friends kind of talk about it on the side, and Vasily's there and he's like, literally, like, I'm letting him do what he needs to do to keep the country safe. And then their Arrow Ace friend is like, I've always thought that Dimitri was quite like me, because they don't necessarily fall in love with someone's body first. It's always like they become friends and then they fall in love with their intelligence, and then they're like satisfied sexually. And Vasily realizes that's kind of how they had their trajectory, right? They were like really close in friendship, and then they found that sexual satisfaction together well after they became really good friends and like fell in love with each other and all this kind of stuff. So it's like the treatment of demisexuality in here was just so lovely, and I thought that was wonderful. And the treatment of any kind of queerness in here is just so fantastic. But yeah, so I did have a couple problems with these books, with the slowness and that kind of stuff, and then also with the specific like magic system and world building in that sense with Alexei and his holy sciences, because I understand that something can go wrong with these experiments that has happened, and then some entity has snuck in and is pretending it's God to Alexei, right? But there's no like, we don't go into that. We don't explore the holy sciences or how we got here or as experimentation in that way, specifically with this weird entity. Like, I don't know how this demon entity got in the way of God, essentially, like got into Alexei's brain and took over and like reanimated him. Like, I don't know how that happened, because the holy sciences are supposed to be like holy, right? Like these experimentations and stuff, like the stuff that our team is doing, Dimitri and Vasily and their friends are doing on the side, they deal exclusively with angels and God, but they call it the holy sciences, and they're doing this experimentation in the holy sciences because of what Alexei did. But Alexei's went wrong, and I'm like, okay, but like, what's the risk of their stuff going wrong? Like, did their shit go wrong at any point? We don't really know, because nothing really went wrong. And I was like, it's very easy for them actually to get an angel to talk to them. Like, what, is it just that easy for someone to seek out this information and like summon an angel? Like, I felt like the stakes weren't there with the magic itself, because I was like, if Alexei has a demon living in his head, what's to say that you guys aren't making deals with demons right now? Like, how do you know it's actually an angel talking to you? There was none of that really explored. I don't know. Like, there was a little bit of disconnect for me with that specific aspect of the world building, because it's like, one, Alexei doesn't know, especially in book 1, that he's done this, that he has this mistake. He has no evidence that it would be a mistake either, right? Because like, who wouldn't believe the entity in their own head telling them that they're God? I was just like, that was one thing that I was like, okay, I have so many questions after book 1. And I'm like, I wonder if we're gonna get into it in book 2. We didn't really get into any more of the holy sciences in book 2. Like, we did see holy sciences being done and like that kind of stuff, the magic in here. But I'm like, how did Alexei make this mistake? What went wrong? You know, why him? Why not our other characters? Like, what is the chance of it happening? What is the danger of it I don't know. So that was one of the things that I was just like not very clear on. But overall, really happy I read this duology, and I think they're really, really, really good books if you are looking for something that will destroy your entire soul. Yeah, I really enjoyed them. I think they're well written. I think they're really fascinating stories. I do recommend them if you're at all interested. They're based off of Jewish mythology as well. So I was like, okay, let's do that. And I was worried because I am always a little worried about reading anything that's Jewish, particularly because, free Palestine. But I couldn't find anything about Laura being tied with Israel in any way. I'm pretty sure she's pretty chill. And a lot of my, like, as I said, mutuals on TikTok who are also pro Palestine are chill with her. So I was like, okay, I think I'm safe. So there's that. Anyways, so that was day 5 and day 6. And then, as I said, I read also Next of Kin on day 7. My voice is leaving me. Hold on. Next of Kin by Hannah Bodum Young. This was fine. I've loved a previous Hannah Bonham Young. Out on a Limb. That one. I'm looking at my little stack of romance books. I loved Out on a Limb so much. And I knew I was going to have a good time with this because, like, really, romance books are just so easy to read. So super quick. Like, I read this in 2.5 hours. And the setup of this one is really interesting. So we have our two characters. We have Chloe and Warren. And they are both in a situation where, I guess we only really have one character because she's our POV and all that kind of stuff. But we have these two separate people. Chloe, our main character, and Warren, her love interest, as they are put together by CPS, Child Protective Services, to help each other out with living situations so that they can then have a chance to house their siblings safely. So we start this book with Chloe finding out that her mom, who she's been estranged from and ended up, like, her birth mom, and Chloe was adopted by a family and raised in that family for a while. Her birth mom just had a baby, a surprise baby she did not know existed. She's still an addict. She's still an alcoholic, an addict, all this kind of stuff. And so the CPS basically and her caseworker calls Chloe because Chloe was basically like her mom, Chloe's mom, birth mom, wanted Chloe to take care of her daughter, this new baby, right? Like, she asked for Chloe specifically to take care of this daughter, in thus that, like, stays in the family kind of a thing. Chloe takes on this mantle of now looking after this newborn child. She's born in the NICU, so she's in there for like 7-8 weeks because she was born premature and she has fetal alcohol syndrome wreaking havoc on her heart and this kind of stuff. So there's a lot of medical things in here with that, but the baby's okay the whole time. Like, she gets better, like her heart starts working, all this kind of stuff. So don't worry about any of those kind of triggers. And it's never ever very sad in here because of that specific ordeal. Like, what we focus on mostly is Chloe's trauma with having grown up in a house with an addict for a mother before she was adopted out to a different family when she was like 5 or 6 or whatever. And she ends up, CPS basically tells her, like, we're going to do this audit on your finances and all this kind of stuff. She's 24 years old. She's fresh out of grad school. She has a job. She is a graphic designer, but she's like a freelance graphic designer, but she doesn't really have like a solid enough financial living situation that, like, CPS is like, yes, immediately, yes, you can take this baby or whatever. They're worried that she's going to not be able to take care of this baby on her own financially. Everything else is fine. So they basically set her up in this program where she gets this other roommate essentially to live with her, because there is also someone in this program who needs housing to be able to look after their sibling in this program, right? So she gets paired up with Warren, who wants to basically adopt and take care of his, maybe not necessarily adopt, but like to take his kid brother who is deaf out of the foster homes that do not have the ability to really take care of this deaf kid properly. He wants to take his 15-year-old brother and like live with him, right, in a safe area and all this kind of stuff, offer him a really stable home, what have you. So Chloe gets paired up with Warren and his brother, and so she preps her whole house and this kind of stuff. So it becomes this like roommate situation. Really interesting premise with these two people having to come together basically to support each other. And like, he pays her rent, right? Like, they go half seas on rent and that kind of stuff. They help with different like expenses, so it helps them both in this way to like be able to take care of their siblings. And so she ends up becoming basically a newborn mom and he has a 15-year-old in the house, a 15-year-old teenage boy who is so sweet. He's such a sweet little bean. I really enjoyed him. Wonderful things is that our main character's adopted dad is also deaf. And so she knows sign language, she knows ASL, so she can talk to his brother, which is really lovely, because that was one thing that was an issue. Like, he just felt really lonely because no one could really talk to him. That was really sweet. And then this whole book, there's no breakup at the 75% mark. There's no dark night of the soul type situation. There is a moment where it gets a little fishy, but they never actually break up. They never go through that. They are very, very solid. But I will say that like all of the momentum in this book was that like romantic tension of like you know, they are immediately attracted to each other and they're living in the same house kind of thing. But that is broken so early because they just immediately start kissing each other. And I'm like, oh, like this is so soon. So by the 50% mark, I was like, all the momentum is gone in this book. I am not really enjoying it as much because like I'm just waiting for something to happen in this book that will like make things like rock the boat kind of a thing, you know? I was just waiting for something to happen. And I'm like, that doesn't, it doesn't keep the book going, you know? So I didn't love that. I thought their relationship was way too quick. Granted, they didn't get to like any of the sex part or anything. They literally said, I love you before they had sex, kind of a level with this relationship. But just like, I wish we had more of that yearning. I wish we sat in that early stage of the relationship where they are getting to know each other and getting to know each other in their living environments and that kind of stuff, and like seeing each other like interact with each of their siblings and that kind of stuff, because he becomes basically like a father to Willow, the little baby, immediately. He's so good with her, and also like the 15-year-old is incredible with the baby as well, and he immediately is like offering up his car for her, even though he's like a raging dickbag in the first couple chapters that we meet him, because he's a little bit off-putting, his personality, but like he is such a sweet soft man at the end of the day, and I'm just like, okay, like that's cute. But it was a little grating. I don't know, there's just something off about this book that I didn't quite love, but it was cute. So there's that. And then we had like 2 epilogues, and I was like, these are not needed. Both of these epilogues are not needed. They're just like the typical romance epilogues where we get like the proposal and then we get like years down the road where they have a bunch of fucking kids, right? And it's just like, okay, chill the fuck out, you know what I mean? So anyways, I read that on day 7, and that basically wrapped up my 7 books in 7 days challenge. But then I read Fabulous Bodies by Chuck Tingle, which, holy shit, I waxed poetic a little bit about this one in my weekend vlog. All I gotta say is like, oh my god, homie, I read this in an hour and a half on that day 7 as well, so that's why I'm counting it here. So I read 8 books in 7 days, just not 8 of them off my TBR. Again, granted, this was an arc, so, and I did read it before it came out, which I'm very happy with. So there's that, which is so rare for me with arcs. Oh my god. But yeah, this homie does not shy away from shit with his horror. This was so batshit crazy. It follows an influencer who is a like body snatcher on the side. She like steals bodies from funeral homes for money to be able to keep up her lavish influencer style by day, essentially. She's also a mom to a 5-year-old. She's a terrible mom. She fucking like, she's the influencer mom that like makes her 5-year-old work out with her, and I'm just like, girl, shut the fuck up, turn the cameras off, and like go play with your kid or something. Like, what are you doing making your kid do cardio at 5 years old? Fuck off, you know what I mean? Like, I didn't like that part of it. She was kind of a garbage human being. I didn't like our main character at all. But the whole book just takes you by the throat and does not let you go. And it gets more and more and more and more batshit, because essentially she gets this call that is like, I'm going to offer you $5 million to get this body of this singer that just passed away. Can you do that tonight? And she's like, I can't pass up $5 million. That's going to set up my daughter with like a trust fund and all this kind of stuff. I can't not. And so she says yes. She goes, yes, this body from the singer. The singer wakes up, and it's actually this like interdimensional ancient being that has to do this ritual, and basically takes her to 4 different places, and it just gets bloodier and bloodier, and he has this like compelling power over anybody. Like, he can just basically tell someone to do something. Like, if he commands you to do something, you will do it. And it's like, he just commands people to kill each other, commands people to just stick forks in their eyes. It's fucking crazy. Extremely bloody, extremely gory, and gets more batshit by the moment. And I could not put this book down. I read it in an hour and a half. It's a 300-page book. I read it in an hour and a half. That is so fast. It's crazy. And I did not like this book at all. But like, holy shit. Chuck Tingle, his horror is like, he just goes there. And then he goes far past the line. He will go there. And I had to keep remembering that with this horror, because I was like, holy shit. What the fuck is happening, you know? Anyways, that was Fabulous Bodies. And I'm glad that I read that, because I made it an 8th book in this challenge. Surprise, another book. So I don't actually know how many pages I read or anything like that, or the hours I read. I'm gonna do the math. So I end this video with some stats on this challenge, because that would be really fun. Okay, I did the math. 7 days, 8 books, 2,975 pages, and 26 and a half hours of audiobooks listened to, because I got an audiobook for every single one of these books except for the Chuck Tingle arc. That one I read with my own eyes, but I had all of them put in here. That's crazy. That's crazy. There are all the numbers. I don't know. 26 and a half hours, 2,975 pages. Holy shit. I read across 3 different genres: fantasy, sci fi, maybe 4 different genres. Yeah. Fantasy, sci fi, romance, and horror for this challenge. And I think I did pretty good. So, my friends, thank you so much for hanging out with me during this little baby challenge, not a baby challenge, this Mama Jama challenge where I read 7 books in 7 days, tried to read 7 books in 7 days out of a whole stack of books. I still have that stack of books on my mantle, so maybe I'll read some more out of there soon. Who's to say? I got lots of options. So amazing. My favorite book of the bunch was India Holton's Antiquarian's Desire, Object of Desire book. That was my favorite. My least favorite, I think, was, oh gosh, maybe Our Lady of Mysterious Ailments, but I didn't like hate that one. Maybe Fabulous Bodies, but again, that one wasn't really part of the challenge. Yeah, like my favorite was the India Holton. I didn't really love everything else. I liked the reading experience of the duology. Super glad that I read that. Yeah, top 3 were the duology and then the India Holton. Everything else is under that. But yeah, amazing. Have you ever done a little reading challenge like this? I challenge you to read a couple books in a couple days if you are so willing, because I think it's very fun and fulfilling to be able to do, to sit down and just read a book all in one sitting, or to try and tackle a book in a day. I think is really fun, and it's like, I can do that. It's like reading is a muscle that you like train, right? Like the more you read, the faster you get, the better you get at reading. So I challenge you to try read a book in a day. See how it feels if you haven't done it in a while. But yes, my friends, I will catch you in another video very, very soon. Stay kind and keep on reading.